love you, Cleveland. I love you, Cleveland. And I love you, Ohio. And a very pleasant welcome to this week's version of Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. Brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel. Hi, I'm Bruce Drennan. Pat McGuire's here, subbing for Ryan Smith. Thanksgiving weekend. Ryan's out of town visiting friends. Pat, good to see you again. Happy Thanksgiving.
Great to see you, Bruce. Going to be a great week.
Yeah, it is, and happy Thanksgiving to all of you. I'm wearing Browns colors today, proudly following the victory against the Raiders. It's so rare that we get to celebrate a victory, so I figure I better take advantage. So much about Shedeur Sanders, and the kid did okay. So much, but let's face it. The defense won this game. And I don't know who's worse, the Raiders or Purdue. Shedeur Sanders became the first Browns quarterback since 1995 to win his first start. The Browns were 0-17 dating back to 1997 before Modell bolted town for Baltimore. And the last Cleveland quarterback to do it was Eric Zaire. 29-26 overtime victory over Cincinnati. And that was the last year in Cleveland before leaving, and Belichick was the coach. Speaking of facts and tidbits about our quarterbacks, on last week's show, I informed you that Sanders was about to become the 42nd quarterback starting for the Browns since coming back as an expansion franchise in 1999. And I also sarcastically mentioned there's been 45 presidents in the history of the United States, but 42 quarterbacks for the Browns since as recently as 99. And it just goes to show, if you noticed, the networks monitor this show because they put up a graphic of that. Now, they're not that creative to have thought of that themselves, believe me. They got that by monitoring our show, and it's not uncommon for the networks when they know their next assignment, the crew, to monitor shows like ours in whatever markets, like they were monitoring Las Vegas, monitoring Cleveland. They monitor this show a lot because of all the years I've been here. Heck, we drew, 9 million hits when I caught wind of a rumor that the Browns were talking to Dallas about Prescott before the season started, you may recall. That was like 9-10 million people. So it got nationwide attention. But it just goes to show the impact of this program on Big Play Sports Network and how corrupt and deceiving the network is. First of all, they got it wrong. They said 45 quarterbacks and 45 presidents. It was 42 and 45. But it just goes to show how deceiving they are, how they lie, how they take credit when they don't deserve it. And, of course, we see it every single day from the networks pertaining to politics in this country. But back to Sanders. Good for him. I'm glad for the kid, especially in front of his dad. But 11 of 20, he was okay. 209 yards. He did some good. He did some bad, but he's going to learn. He's a young kid. But the reason the Browns won this game is because of the defense. Heck, the Browns sacked Geno Smith 10 times. And consistently, continually harassed him all day long. Myles Garrett had 3 more sacks, and now just 5 away from the all-time record with 6 games to play. He's going to do it. Garrett has 18 sacks this year, and he's chasing, of course, Michael Strahan and T.J. Watt. They both had 22. As a result of this horrible loss for Las Vegas, Chip Kelly has been fired as their offensive coordinator. Pete Carroll should be fired, too. For goodness sakes, he's as old, if not older than me. How does he keep that job? How many times did we see the camera zoom in on him on the sidelines, and he was like, and pacing up and down and totally bewildered and confused, I thought, Pat.
100%, Bruce. He was chomping that gum, too, as he always does, too. He's got the 13. He's like Terry Francona over there. But it was really a terrible showing from the Raiders, too. Chip Kelly, he was the highest paid offensive coordinator in the NFL. They brought him over from Ohio State last year. We saw how that went against Michigan. We'll get into that later. But Geno Smith, to be fair, he's having a terrible season, but that might be the worst offensive line genuinely I've ever seen in Las Vegas. To pair him against the best defense in the league by far, a Super Bowl caliber type defense, and Myles Garrett absolutely dominated. It was just a shameful showing.
Well, finally the defense was rewarded with a victory. And I've said before, if you're a member of the Browns defense, which is, I think, arguably one of the top 3 overall defensive units in the entire National Football League, and I'll argue that with anyone, and you got to go home and think, oh, God, what do we have to do to win? This offense of ours is pathetic, let alone when special teams doesn't do their job like the week before. But, you got to be so frustrated. So I'm happy for the defense to finally be rewarded with a victory, that's for sure. But the bottom line is this. We play San Francisco Sunday. It's here in Cleveland. Weather's going to be a factor. Of course, we could get snow and some weather here on the Thanksgiving weekend, but Frisco must win this game. They must win this game to keep pace with the Rams and Seattle in their own division. So we'll see how the kid does. And one other note, Pat, and to the fans, the Browns in this game against San Francisco certainly are going to have their hands full. I think they'll pressure like crazy. That's the hope. The defense can indeed win this game for us, but it's going to be very telling because this is a San Francisco team that's had its ups and downs this year. But as I said, it's vital that they win this game to keep pace in that very competitive NFC West.
Yeah, 100%, Bruce. And Christian McCaffrey he's having a healthy season. We said that last year up until that game in the snow against Buffalo. He's not necessarily having the career year that you might think he would have in a system like this with Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco, but he is still one of the best players in the NFL. The Browns will definitely have their hands full. If you can control Christian McCaffrey, which, to be honest, they did against Derrick Henry for the most part. He did have one breakaway run here in the last game at home, but they controlled him in Baltimore. Ashton Genty couldn't really get going a whole lot this past week either, but Christian McCaffrey is a whole different beast as he's a really good receiving back. If you can keep Brock Purdy pressured, that's the only way you're going to win.
Well, when we come back, we'll take a look, as we always do, at the rest of the National Football League, and it is still very much wide open, up in the air, as to who's going to represent these respective conferences in the Super Bowl. That's next on Bonus Time. We've only just begun.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Smart Choice Windows, energy-efficient products at an affordable price. Visit smartchoicewindows.com today.
Chicago 31, Pittsburgh 28. The Steelers led 21-17 at halftime with Mason Rudolph subbing for the injured Aaron Rodgers in this one. Rodgers had gone 25-5 in his career against the Chicago Bears. This loss plummets the Steelers into a first-place tie with surging Baltimore in our division. And Baltimore at 6-5 now, 5 in a row. Meanwhile, the Bears solidified their first-place standing in the NFC North. And who'd have thought? At the beginning of the season, remember I told you at the very beginning of the season that Thanksgiving Day, there's going to be a really great matchup early. I said sarcastically, don't plan on carving your turkey till about 4:30, because Detroit and Green Bay play the early game, and it could be a preview of the NFC Championship. It really could have been. And here it is. It's still a big game. There's no question. It's still a big game. But it's a big game because the winner stays close to front-running Chicago of all teams, and the loser could be in jeopardy of qualifying for the playoffs. Caleb Williams out of Southern Cal, 3 touchdown passes in the win against Pittsburgh and leading the comeback victory at Soldier Field against the Steelers, Pat.
Caleb Williams played pretty well, but it was more so that Jekyll and Hyde Steelers defense that we talked about a couple weeks back, Bruce. At certain points, we talked about this on the snap count with Charlie Batch and Trey Essex as well, that they look like they're the best defense in the league on certain snaps, and then they look like they're the worst. So it's really strange. I think it was more of a statement on that Steelers defense as opposed to that Bears offense, but at a certain point, both the Packers and the Lions are looking up at the Bears in the division. I never would have thought it.
The first place New England Patriots overcame a 10-point deficit and improved their record to 10-2 with a 26-20 victory over Cincinnati. Drake May outplayed former Brown Joe Flacco in this one, and the Patriots have now won 9 in a row. Cincinnati's lost 8 of 9 since Joe Burrow went down, and Burrow could return against Baltimore tomorrow night. Indianapolis led Kansas City 20-9 entering the fourth quarter of the Chiefs' come-from-behind overtime victory, 23-20. Mahomes threw for 352 yards, and kicker Harrison Butker kicked 5 field goals in this game to keep the Chiefs' playoff hopes alive at 6-5. Colts running back Jonathan Taylor was held to only 58 yards rushing by the Kansas City defense. Interesting game here, Pat.
Yeah, for sure, because the Chiefs, they were my favorite coming out of the AFC. It's a very wide-open AFC, as we've talked about, but this was a game for the Colts that they had a chance to really prove it, that they were legit in this AFC. And to me, they had that Shane Steichen offense. You went away from Jonathan Taylor towards the end of the game. You're up 11 points going into the fourth quarter. He should be handling the ball 2/3 of the plays, basically. But they kind of went away from him in the end, and Patrick Mahomes, as he always seems to do, dragged the Chiefs to victory with a last-second field goal, went to overtime, and it didn't feel like either team was really – I wasn't that blown away by either of those teams, but the Colts had an opportunity to really prove themselves, and they just let it by.
I really can't get over the underachieving of the Buffalo Bills this year. Last Thursday night, quarterback Josh Allen showed his frustration in this one as he was sacked 8 times. And the Bills committed 3 turnovers, and as a result, Houston upset them 23-19. Houston kept their playoff hopes alive despite quarterback C.J. Stroud still being out. We're going to talk more about Buffalo in the handicapping segment. Quarterback Dak Prescott rallied the Dallas Cowboys for a 21-point deficit to beat the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles 24-21. This was the first win for Dallas when trailing by 3 touchdowns since they beat the Rams 34-31 way back in 2014. Philly fans can't blame Jalen Hurts for this loss. He threw for 1 touchdown. He ran for 2 touchdowns. However, Saquon Barkley was held to a mere 22 yards rushing in this game in 10 attempts. The Eagles still appear to be the team to beat in the NFC, but could the LA Rams be the one team that could dethrone the Super Bowl champions over there? Matthew Stafford and company easily mauled the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 34-7, and Baker Mayfield got hurt in this game. He hurt his non-throwing shoulder, and so now the Bucs are in jeopardy of not even winning that NFC South. The 6-5 Bucs are barely ahead of Carolina, who's 6-6. Despite getting trounced by San Francisco Sunday night, 20-9, Carolina's still alive. Especially because Mayfield could be out for weeks, we understand, but that's yet to be determined. Meanwhile, the Rams improved to 9-2 and now own the best record in the NFC, Pat.
Yeah, they're really good value on the FanDuel Sportsbook for Super Bowl champion because Matthew Stafford is having pretty much a career year. He played so well for years and years and years for Detroit. We saw him so many Thanksgivings, but this is the best I think I've seen him play. But the key for them, Bruce, is Devontae Adams around the goal line. A lot of teams have a goal line running back. They've got Devontae Adams on the goal line where you can throw it to him on these slants and fade routes. He's going to catch him pretty much every time like he did with Aaron Rodgers for years and years and years. But Sean McVay, a great coach. That defense is rounding into form. I like the Rams a lot as a Super Bowl favorite.
And lastly, Green Bay beat Minnesota 23-6, setting up their Thanksgiving Day showdown tomorrow against Detroit. We always tape our show here on Wednesdays. And speaking of the Lions, they were lucky to win this game. by the way, because they were coming from behind at home against the lowly New York Giants and prevailed 34-27 in overtime. Jahmyr Gibbs rushed for 219 yards, including that 69-yard touchdown dash on the first snap in OT. All right, when we get back, Pat and I are going to do some handicapping. I don't often get intimidated, but the last time this guy subbed for Ryan on the show, he went 6-1 and embarrassed me. That better not happen again. That's next.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Garage Beer. No bitterness, no frills, no IPA, just beer-flavored beer. Find local retailers who sell garage beer near you by visiting drinkgaragebeer.com.
Once again, happy Thanksgiving to you and your families. Hope you have a wonderful upcoming weekend, and certainly glad to have you with us. Bonus time with Drennan here in the Big Play Sports Network, brought to you by FanDuel. Well, we always do the handicapping segment with the spreads in mind, and last week I went 3-2. We had 5. I always choose the top games of the week, the best matchups to try to handicap. And last week I went 3-2. Ryan had a good week. He went 4-1. So on the season, I'm now 34-32 against the spread, and Ryan is 31-28 and now has a better percentage. But the best percentage, even though it was a one-shot duel, a one-shot opportunity was Pat here, who went 6-1 the last time that he subbed for Ryan. So let's see how you do today, Master. San Francisco was -6 against our Browns here in Cleveland. As I said earlier, the Niners have to win this game to keep pace in the NFC West at 8-4. Shedeur Sanders, this will be his second start. Pat, I got to go with San Fran.
Yeah, there's not much more to say about it. The Browns are 5.5-point underdogs. San Francisco needs this win super badly. I know they're coming into Cleveland. You get home field advantage with the Browns. It's not going to be close. The Niners are winning this one.
Okay, you're with me on that one. I'll be darned. All right, Green Bay is getting 2.5 at Detroit in the big Thanksgiving matchup tomorrow. Packers are 7-3-1. Detroit is 7-4. Lions need this one more, and this matchup brings back memories to me historically as an old-timer of Bart Starr and Alex Karras. I'll have you pick this one first.
I'm taking the Lions at home. They really struggle, like we talked about, against the Giants. That defense is a little bit of a struggle, but I don't really believe in Jordan Love very much as the quarterback of the Packers. I think that Lions offense, I should say, will get back on track.
I'm in agreement with you, and I've said about Love ever since they blew it against our Browns in giving us that game. And I mean, that was a gift. All right, next. Kansas City is -3 at Dallas. That's the afternoon game tomorrow on Thanksgiving. The Chiefs are now 6-5. Dallas 5-1. It's a must-win for both these teams. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. I'm still of the belief that they're going to qualify for the playoffs. They're not going to win the division this year, but I still believe the Chiefs are a team to be reckoned with.
I'm with you on that one for the playoffs, but I'm going to take the Cowboys here, Bruce. I think they're going to go into Arrowhead. I think the Chiefs are really scuffling. I know they need this game in the worst way, but that offense with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, he has just absolutely taken off since he got to Dallas. I think Quinnen Williams, as he gets more integrated into that Cowboys defense, I think it'll help stop the running game that hasn't been that great for the Chiefs. I'm taking the Cowboys.
All right, next, the Chicago Bears are getting 7 points with their 8-3 record, first place NFC North at Philadelphia against the Super Bowl champions who have an identical 8-3 record. Eagles have got to be in an angry mood, that's for sure. I'll have you pick this one first.
Yeah, I think begrudgingly, I'll go with the Eagles. I'm not really a huge believer in Jalen Hurts either, but this defense should be able to handle Caleb Williams because he takes a lot of sacks. I know he scrambles, and sometimes you get a lot of variance with quarterbacks who can scramble like that. But I think this Eagles defense is just going to be too good, and I think Saquon Barkley will get back on track too. He fumbled last week in a big-time set where he only had 10 rushes and 30 yards, whatever it was. But I think they get back on track. Saquon Barkley scores as well.
I'm with you on this one, too. I think that it's going to be a reality check for Caleb Williams and the Bears.
Certainly.
I'm not quite convinced and sold on them yet. Houston is getting 4.5 at Indianapolis. Now, the Texans are 6-5, still breathing. Indianapolis 8-3. Stroud or no Stroud? I like Indianapolis at home, especially after losing at Kansas City. They are out to prove that they are a Super Bowl contender. How about you?
I'm taking the Texans here, Bruce. That run defense is phenomenal. I know Jonathan Taylor can break loose against any team, but the way that they just controlled the Houston Texans defense, just controlled James Cook and Josh Allen, I think they're going to have a really good chance against Jonathan Taylor, but I think the real key is I don't think Daniel Jones is really playing healthy that well. I think he's a little bit more banged up than he's leading on, and he hasn't been playing that well. That's what kind of leads that offense. You can stack the box against Jonathan Taylor, especially with that good Texans defense.
And lastly, Buffalo was -3.5 on the road at Pittsburgh. Buffalo was 7-4. The Steelers 6-5. Despite these terrible upsets the Bills have endured, I still think they are the better team, Aaron Rodgers or not. So I'm going to take Buffalo here, Pat.
Yeah, I'm taking Buffalo as well. Josh Allen just drags that team kicking and screaming to whatever they're going to be. Josh Allen got them there. Hopefully they can get Dalton Kincaid back, their pass-catching tight end. He's their number one option in the passing game. And we saw that their wide receivers, since they got rid of Stephon Diggs, there's really nobody in that wide receiver room who can support Josh Allen like that. James Cook out of the backfield is pretty good, but I'm still taking the Bills.
It's rivalry weekend in college football. That's next on Bonus Time here on Big Play.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Smart Choice Windows, energy-efficient products at an affordable price. Visit smartchoicewindows.com today.
Good to have you back on Bonus Time with Drennan here on Big Play. We get into the college football playoff rankings. And this week, Ohio State remains number one at undefeated 11-0. And former Ohio State head coaches Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer dominated Michigan in this annual rivalry. Only John Cooper has been worse than Ryan Day. Day is 1-4 and has lost 4 in a row to the team up north. Wide receivers Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith both sat out last week's game against Rutgers, that thrashing of 42-9. So their game time status is noteworthy and certainly something to pay attention to going into this one. Of course, the Buckeyes are in the college football playoff, even if they lose this game to the Maize and Blue. But their first-round bye might go away if they do get upset. Meanwhile, it's do or die for Michigan to make the playoffs. They're at 9-2. And if they do pull off this big upset, the Wolverines would still have a chance to play in the Big Ten Championship, believe it or not, deserving or not. But that would be the following week against Indiana. Ohio State's a big 10-point favorite, Pat.
And I think I'll take them for even more than that. I would take the alt line if you could, but I think the Buckeyes are really going to run away with this one. Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith or not, even without those guys, I still think Ohio State can run on this Michigan defense. They allowed a lot of yards on the ground against USC, some of the better competition that they've played. I think Ohio State is absolutely out for blood this year, and rightfully so, because the way that you can win a national championship and have it still hang over your head 365 days later that you lost to Michigan at home, they're on a search for redemption, which is crazy to think about because this was last year's team. Is basically nobody has returned. You know what I mean? Like, it's wild that a rivalry can persist for so long a year later, but I think Ohio State is out for blood. I'm taking them to win big.
Okay, number 2 is Indiana. They were idle last week. They're undefeated. They'll finish up against Mendoza and company, against Purdue. They'll have an easy time. They're a 4-touchdown favorite. Number 3 remains the Texas A&M Aggies. They are 11-0, and an expected win for the Aggies against Texas will put them in the SEC championship game and a great chance of getting a first-round bye in the college football playoff. This is the 120th meeting between A&M and Texas. And with the explosiveness of A&M quarterback Marcel Reed, you'd think that Coach Elko's Aggies will have little trouble against an underachieving Longhorn bunch this year. But that historic comeback against South Carolina a couple of weeks ago, trailing 30-3 at halftime, makes me convinced that they better not take Texas for granted in this one. If I were an NIL contributor to the Texas football program, I'd be calling for Sarkisian's job, especially if he loses this game. After all, the Horns were the preseason number 1 team in the country. They enter this game with a disappointing 8-3 record. The odds makers, though, are definitely giving Texas respect and a chance to win this game outright. A&M, Pat, is only a 2.5-point favorite.
That was shocking to see for me, Bruce. Texas, I think, has been fraudulent pretty much all season long. The thing that you think about, you make a great point with Steve Sarkisian, is not only sometimes do you get the prince that was promised in this NIL era, right? The second coming of Christ to take snaps at quarterback for the University of Texas, the Longhorns. Longhorns are back. They've had that guy twice now. Quinn Ewers was the prince that was promised when he went to Ohio State and then decommitted and then went to Texas. He should have led the team to a national title. Now you've got Arch Manning. He looks like Drew Aller out there. Both of those guys have completely lost their games, and Arch Manning has come around a little bit this last part of the season, but at a certain point, guys, the coach is the reason that these quarterbacks are not developing and the reason why your team can't follow through in the college football era.
Georgia Bulldogs are number 4 in the country again this week. They are 10-1. The Dogs' only loss was a 24-21 defeat to Alabama. They beat the number 7 Ole Miss Rebels 43-35 and number 16 Texas 35-10. They didn't have to play Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, or Missouri. This is a non-conference game against Georgia Tech, and it doesn't affect the Dogs getting into the college football playoff, but it might affect their first-round bye if they do lose. Georgia Tech at 9-2. The Rambling Wreck started the season at 8-0 and looked like the team to beat in the ACC, but losing 2 out of 3 to NC State and Pitt has put their playoff hopes in jeopardy with another loss here. Georgia, a big 13.5-point favorite in this one, Pat.
Man, that's a lot of points, Bruce. I can kind of understand it because at a certain point you do get those programs like Georgia, like Alabama, like Ohio State that get the benefit of the doubt more so than often. Georgia Tech coming off of that Pitt game, I'm not sure if you saw any of that, but they got absolutely trounced. I think it was 21-0 in the first quarter at home at Georgia Tech, which is unbelievable to see with your back against the wall in the college football playoff era where you have to kind of win. That was pretty close to an elimination game. We had a lot of true elimination games last week. Yeah. But to come out and just be so flat like that and not be able to overcome Pitt.
Especially the way they started the season.
I know. They looked so good with Haynes King.
Yeah, I know.
I just unbelievable.
I don't know if they'll cover, but I think Georgia's going to win for sure. Number 5 is Texas Tech. They are 10-1, and they remain at the number 5 spot as the clear favorite to win the Big 12 championship and earn a college football playoff spot. Their only loss was a surprising 26-22 defeat at the hands of Arizona State, or of Arizona, and Tech is a 23.5-point favorite in this one. Number 6 is Oregon. They move ahead of Ole Miss to the number 6 spot after their impressive 42-27 victory against Southern Cal. I watched that game. They improved to 10-1 with that victory, and their only loss was at home against Indiana. Oregon is a 6.5-point favorite at Washington, but Washington can't be taken for granted. That's a good Washington Huskies team. They're 8-3 and a dangerous game for the Ducks. Any opinion on that?
It's going to be a dangerous game. You're definitely right because Washington, they hung tough with Ohio State back there at home in their great stadium over there. But Oregon has been rounding into form. They don't necessarily have the resume because they've only got one good loss and no true great wins. But the eye test is what the College Football Committee was going off of. I still think they're a very talented football team. If they didn't win that Iowa game, though, we're talking about a completely different game. And, I mean, that was sloppy game. You would have thought that
Ferentz, he always plays teams in the top
in the rain, too. Like, it would have been sloppy,
tough.
but I don't know that I'm that impressed with Oregon.
I can't say enough about Ferentz. I think he does more with less material than any coach in the country year in, year out. Number 7 is Ole Miss. They're 10-1. The question isn't whether quarterback Trinidad Chambliss and the Rebels will beat Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. No, that's not the question. The question is, will head coach Lane Kiffin announce that he's leaving for LSU? Now, that wouldn't prevent the Rebels from getting into the college football playoff, but it might affect their seeding. And what will it mean for the morale of the team if he leaves? That would be such a shame if that happens. Mississippi's only loss was to number 4 Georgia, 43-35. This might be the best football team that the school has ever had.
Man, pretty incredible to think about, too. That Lane Kiffin stuff is so wild, Bruce, because not only is he in the running for the LSU job, he's also in the running for the Florida job. And we've seen It's like musical chairs sometimes in the college football landscape, where these head coaches, they can leave whenever they want. The players can leave whenever they want. It used to be where coaches had their own type of portal where they could leave whenever they want and the players couldn't. But it's so many moving pieces. I still think Ole Miss does rally around their coach and get it done in the Egg Bowl, but it's just such a strange time because what if they go to the playoff and he's gone?
I know.
Unbelievable.
And he could take his coordinators with him.
Insane.
His family visited Baton Rouge. I don't know if they've gone to Florida, but number 8 is Oklahoma. They're 9-2, and the Sooner defense, I don't think there's any questions, one of the best defensive units in the country, as they once again showed it in their 17-6 victory over a good Missouri team. Outside of losing 2 out of 3 in midseason to Texas in the Red River rivalry and Ole Miss, the Sooners, with a win against LSU, are heading to the college football playoff. Oklahoma's a 10-point favorite against LSU, who sports a 7-4 record. This is a solid, and Mateer manages the game well. I don't know how good of a pro quarterback he'll be. He might turn out to be a good, reliable pro quarterback, but with that defense, all he needs to do is manage the offense.
100% too, and getting that thumb more healthy too would be the big thing for John Mateer too. I know he's been back in game action, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're full strength or anything like that. So he's still in the Heisman running. He did get hurt, which hurt his chances, obviously. John Mateer has been really great for them when healthy, so Oklahoma could be dangerous.
Notre Dame is number 9 at 9-2, and after the Irish beat Stanford, I'm presumptuous, safely, I think, they're a 32.5-point favorite. I mean, why not? They will be invited to the college football playoffs, and again will be a tough out for whoever their matchup is against. Notre Dame made a statement last week against a hapless Syracuse team, but they did that on purpose. Number 10 is Alabama. Now, they're 9-2, and they're going to beat Auburn, and they'll probably play in the SEC championship game and probably will be the 5th SEC team to qualify for the college football playoffs. Pat?
Unbelievable to think that opening loss against Florida State, too, where they just they were sleepwalking through the whole game. I think that was in Tallahassee.
Florida State turned out to be very disappointing after an inspiring win to open the season.
Back-to-back years, we're saying the same thing about the Seminoles, but Alabama has rounded into form. I'm surprised that Ryan Williams hasn't really taken off to the extent that we thought he might. He was definitely a Heisman hopeful kind of as a freshman, too. He was 17 years old when he was playing in Tuscaloosa. Another year under his belt. He hasn't necessarily taken off the way that people are watching Jeremiah Smith kind of do that, but still a very dangerous team.
Number 11 is BYU. They're 10-1, and they must win the Big 12 championship, in my opinion, to get into the playoffs. And number 12 is Miami, and they must beat Pitt to even have a chance to get in. And, of course, they're in the ACC. Now, finally, I want to say this. There are far too many scenarios concerning some of the other contenders who are ranked in the college football playoffs top 25 making the playoffs. Much too many scenarios to go into. However, it drives me crazy that a group of 5 team is going to get in. It's ridiculous, in my opinion, to assume whichever team it is represents one of the best 12 teams in the country. Give me a break. It's a joke. And I'll tell you what else it does. It deprives a much more deserving team or teams from a chance of getting in. And here's the other thing. It's like giving a bye to whoever their opponent is going to be in the playoffs. The only way to rectify this is to have these group of 5 teams schedule power teams from the power conferences, and they got to beat them. They've got to beat them. And they haven't proven they can do that, but they still appease to the MACs and the Conference USAs of the world. Give me a break, Pat.
It's just such a frustrating thing, too, because Boise State last year, you can make a little bit more of an argument because they had a better team and that type of stuff, but they weren't just not to the level.
They weren't.
They just weren't at all.
And it showed in their game.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing, too, would be kind of funny is if James Madison were to maybe make the group of 5 group, then you play against Signetti. That'd be kind of funny. These teams, like even Navy, like that would have been cool, a cool storyline, but if that's what you're going for is the cool storyline, you're not putting out a good product as
The
a football
goal is
game.
to have.
The goal
it
is to have a
used
good
be
football
when
game.
there was 2 teams, the goal was to pick the 2 best teams in the country. When it was 4 teams, the goal was to be the 4 best teams in the country. This is not the 12 best teams in the country. All right, next we're going to shift gears, talk a little bit about the Cavs. College basketball is underway, and there was a trade in baseball. Bonus time continues.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Garage Beer. No bitterness, no frills, no IPA, just beer-flavored beer. Find local retailers who sell garage beer near you by visiting drinkgaragebeer.com.
Okay, the Cavaliers are at Atlanta Friday, but they've been stricken with injuries. Darius Garland still got that toe problem. Jared Allen finger. DeAndre Hunter resting. Merrill hand. Dean Wade knee. Cavs are 12-7. 4 games behind Detroit with Bickerstaff. Ironically, I find that very interesting sidebar story. They're 15-2, the Pistons. The Cavs are a game and a half behind Toronto, half game behind Miami in the Eastern Conference standings, half game ahead of the New York Knicks, and 1 game ahead of Atlanta. They're still right there. They're going to be fine, but they have been stricken with a lot of injuries, and it's going to come down to how physical the Cavs are going to be, even if they're fully healthy in the playoffs, Pat. How physical can they be? Because that's what's cost them these last few years.
100%. And Donovan Mitchell was interviewed with Gab Cruz here on the Big Play Sports Network. That was maybe a week or 10 days ago. But he was saying it's actually sort of encouraging that this team is struggling in the early onset as opposed to last season where their 5th loss came January 12th, right? They won like 14 games out of the gate last season and kind of coasted a little bit. One of the encouraging things for me, Bruce, is you're seeing physical play from Thomas Bryant and Naquan Tomlin, 2 guys who were not really mainstays. Bryant wasn't here last year, but Naquan Tomlin was just getting his feet underneath him on that 2-way contract last year. Both of those guys are playing incredibly physical when Evan Mobley will not. That is one of those weird things where you got to get a guy, kind of like the Kendrick Perkins when we brought him in 2017-18. You got to get a guy to do the dirty work and rebound and go for loose balls. But Evan Mobley, he needs to get more physical or these guys are going to play more minutes.
Great observation. As talented as he is, really on target there, Pat. College basketball is underway, and the Purdue Boilermakers are the number 1 team in the country, undefeated out of the Big Ten. Arizona's second at 6-0. Houston 6-1. They just lost to Tennessee 76-73. Duke, John Shire's Blue Devils, right there again, even with missing Cooper Flagg and that crew. They're 7-0. And UConn's number 5 at 5-1. They just lost to Arizona 71-67. So college b-ball underway. We'll keep tabs for you, and especially after we turn the corner into 2026. There was a trade in baseball that I want to make mention of because it is significant. The St. Louis Cardinals have traded Sonny Gray to the Boston Red Sox in exchange for the Red Sox number 5 prospect, a left-handed pitcher by the name of Brandon Clark, and a right-handed pitcher who split between A and AA last year. His name is Richard Fitz. But Boston getting Sonny Gray to go along with Crochet and Bayou gives them a formidable rotation in the very, very tough and rugged American League East, Pat.
Yeah, for sure. Sonny Gray is one of those guys that he dominated here against Cleveland. I should say he's lifetime. We might be the best team that he pitches against. But the funny thing, too, is the Red Sox received $20 million in addition to those guys to help offset that contract. It was a big contract that he signed. He is 36 years old. He's got a lot of miles on that arm, but he's got great stuff. He's a gamer, and that's the type of guy who would really thrive in a Boston environment. I love this trade for the Red Sox. They needed to bolster that pitching rotation. Lucas Giolito's gone, but
you never know about prospects.
100%.
This kid Clark could turn out to be a dandy.
I love it for the Red Sox.
And the Cardinals scouting has always been tremendous, so don't take it
what a fall
granted.
from grace, though, for the Cardinals.
But I agree with you about Gray. He only throws 91 miles per hour, but he has such control of his breaking pitches, and that's the way Bieber was effective, and even Corey Kluber, too, here in Cleveland. And they weren't overpowering 98, 100 miles an hour, but their 93 was so effective and seemed faster because they had such control of their breaking pitches. That's the way Gray throws, Pat.
He's the guy who knows how to pitch. That's an kind of a lost art, as you were talking about with guys like Corey Kluber. You hear that a lot of times, and you don't really understand what that means. Like John Smoltz will say that on broadcasts because they know what it means to pitch to somebody. Not just Smoltz is great on those broadcasts. You're not just throwing velocity at somebody and anymore. That's what's happening these days. Is you need to be able to know how to work off of those fastball that he has. Like 91 looks much better for him because it's deceptive. He gets a lot of extension on his release as well. I really like that.
Winter meetings coming up in December. Next, Ask Bruce segment on Bonus Time. Big Play.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Garage Beer. No bitterness, no frills, no IPA, just beer-flavored beer. Find local retailers who sell garage beer near you by visiting drinkgaragebeer.com.
All right, Pat, fire away.
So we got two good ones for you today. We got two quarterbacks, former Cleveland Browns, Jacoby Brissett and Jameis Winston, both threw for over 350 yards this past week. We haven't seen that in a Cleveland Browns quarterback in quite some time. Do you think the Browns gave up on Jacoby Brissett, Jameis Winston, and many, many other quarterbacks too early?
A cast of thousands.
Yes.
No, not really. I mean, what a situation. Everything backfired because of Watson and the deal committing the guaranteed money. I was for it, as you know. I'm on record. I didn't think we were going to get to the Super Bowl, let alone win it with Mayfield, and I don't think Tampa Bay will either. He's a good quarterback, not a great quarterback. He's a winner. He's not a champion. There is a difference. But in the case of these backups, these guys are good backups. I watched Winston the other day, and he played a great game, but they're backups. They're backups.
Bruce, last one for you here. On the defensive side of the ball, Myles Garrett is ready to get his second Defensive Player of the Year coming off of his 2023 season. This would be the first time if Carson Schlesinger can get the Defensive Rookie of the Year for the Cleveland Browns and Myles Garrett wins the Defensive Player of the Year. This would be the first time that one team has had both of those players since Lawrence Taylor with the Giants, when he did it both as a rookie and the Defensive Player of the Year. Do you think Myles Garrett is more dominant than Lawrence Taylor?
Oh, that's a great question, because Taylor's one of the greatest linebackers of all time. He came from an era, Singletary. You think of Butkus, you think of Nitschke, you think of all the great ones, Tommy Nobis even, and some of the greats of the past. Wow, so many fabulous linebackers, and he's one of the greatest. Of course, as a down lineman, edge rusher like Garrett is, I can't think of anybody that I would put over him. I think Garrett is so special, and I wonder, though, if he is regretting signing that contract with the Browns. He could have got that money from somebody else. I mean, he's so much fun to watch, and I just think he's so special, but it's a shame that he's on such a lousy team. I hate to say it, but I'm wearing the colors. We won. Hopefully I'll be able to wear them next week. That's all the time we've got for this week's version. Bonus Time with Drennan here on Big Play, brought to you by FanDuel. Hope you enjoyed the show. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend. Enjoy all the football. Look forward to next week's show. I'm Bruce Drennan. On behalf of Pat McGuire, thank you, Pat. And we'll see you next week. Until then, as always, and most importantly, you remember, I love you, Ohio. And I love you, Cleveland. I love you, Cleveland.